Welcome back to History Otherwise, where we explore the paths not taken in history.
It's good to be back. And, usually we're digging into sources to figure out what did happen.
Exactly.
But today, the material we're looking at, it's asking us to look at a moment where, well, the entire world seems to hold its breath.
It really is one of the most fragile pivot points, I think, in the whole European story. We've got a stack of analyses here, and they all zero in on one place, one time, August 1422.
Right. The Chateau de Vincennes, just outside Paris.
And let's just set the scene for you. Inside that castle, you have Henry V, the victor of Agincourt, a man who has, well, he's essentially never known defeat.
And he's dying.
He's dying of dysentery, of all things that he picked up at the Siege of Meaux.
It's such a grim, visceral image. The bloody flux, they called it. It's such an ignoble end for a legend.
It is.
And it reminds you, we always talk about grand forces and economic trends, but sometimes history just turns on something tiny, microscopic even.
Yeah.
The life in a cup of unclean water.
In our timeline, that thread snapped. Henry died at 35. His son, a 9-month-old baby, inherited this crumbling dream.
But that's not our deep dive today.
No. Today, the fever breaks, the thread holds, and we're going to unpack the world where Henry V recovers.
And we have sort of a 3-part mission for this, don't we?
We do. First, we're going to look at how his survival just completely transforms the war in France.
Speed and decisiveness.
Then, how that victory reshapes Britain itself. I mean, no Wars of the Roses, no Reformation.
Which is mind-boggling.
And finally, we'll zoom out. The long-term consequences for Europe, the New World, and even the very idea of liberty.
And the sources are quite clear on this. For English liberty, this victory might have actually been fatal.
A chilling thought. So, okay, let's start there. In the room at Vincennes, the fever breaks. Henry lives. What happens first?
The first thing is, it's pure psychological shock. You have to put yourself in that 15th century mindset.
Oh.
For his own men, the English and their Burgundian allies, Henry wasn't just a king, he was a kind of talisman, God's anointed warrior.
Right.
So if he recovers from his deathbed, that isn't just luck. That is divine intervention. God tested him, and he passed.
It validates everything, his whole campaign.
Completely. Morale just skyrockets. But for the French, specifically for the supporters of the Dauphin, the future Charles VII, this is an absolute catastrophe.
Because their whole strategy was just to wait.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They knew he was sick. They were just trying to run out the clock.
And the timing is just incredible, because only a few weeks later, in October 1422, the French king, Charles VI, the Mad King, he dies.
And this is the key. This is the whole mechanism. In our history, his death leaves a power vacuum. You've got an infant in England and the weak Dauphin in the south.
A total mess.
But in this timeline, Charles VI dies, and a recovered, battle-hardened Henry V is standing right there, holding the Treaty of Troyes.
Let's just clarify that treaty for a second. This wasn't just a ceasefire, was it?
Oh no, it was a legal instrument of succession. It formally disinherited the Dauphin and named Henry V as the heir to the French throne.
So when Charles VI dies, Henry isn't an invader.
He is, legally, the King of France.
So we get a coronation.
Absolutely. Early 1423. I mean, just imagine the visual of that. Henry V entering Notre Dame to be crowned Henri II of France.
The double crown is forged.
And that's where the whole pace of the story changes. In our history, what followed was a grinding regency. It was slow, expensive, attritional warfare.
But Henry doesn't do slow.
He absolutely does not. His style is swift. It's brutal. It's what some of the sources call a decapitation strategy.
What does that mean in practice?
It means he wouldn't waste time on minor castles or small skirmishes. He would take his veterans, and remember, these are the men of Agincourt, the best army in Europe, and he would march south.
Straight for the heart of the resistance.
To crush the so-called Kingdom of Bourges, which was the Dauphin's last real territory.
Okay, this brings up the massive question. I know people listening are thinking it. What about Joan of Arc?
Ah, yes. The Maid of Orleans. This is one of the most fascinating casualties of this new timeline.
What do you mean?
She simply doesn't appear.
She just doesn't happen.
Well, think about when she appears in our history. 1429. That's 7 years after Henry died.
Right.
She emerged from a specific crisis. The Siege of Orleans. The English were bogged down. The French were paralyzed with despair. She filled a vacuum of hope.
But with Henry alive.
With Henry alive, he forces a decisive final battle in 1423, or maybe 1424. The war is over, effectively, years before Joan ever hears her voices. There is no Siege of Orleans for her to lift.
That's That is wild, a figure so central to an entire nation's identity, just erased by a change in timing.
So the French nobility, they see this undefeated king, now crowned, coming for them.
What do they do?
They do what nobles always do. They get pragmatic, they want to keep their heads, and they want to keep their land.
So they submit.
Mass submission. The psychological shockwaves makes the dual monarchy a reality on the map, not just a piece of paper.
Okay, so France is conquered. The two crowns are won. This brings us to part 2, which I have to say I find even more mind-bending. The impact back in England. You're saying this completely averts the Wars of the Roses.
It does. And to understand why, you have to look at what really caused them. It wasn't just, family squabbles.
It was more than that.
It was a power vacuum. Because Henry VI was so weak, there was a lot of unemployed, very angry nobles coming home from a lost war in France with their private armies.
Right, with nothing to do but settle old scores.
Exactly. But with Henry V alive, first, there's no power vacuum. He's a strong king. Nobody is messing with him. But more importantly, France acts as a giant release valve.
A release valve? How so?
Think of the ambitions of families like the Yorks, the Percys, the Nevilles. In our timeline, they fought each other for power in England because that's all there was.
But in this timeline,
they don't go home. They stay in France. They become the governors of Normandy, the dukes of Gascony. They have huge estates to run, a new frontier to manage.
So someone like Richard, Duke of York, instead of plotting in London, he's busy putting down a rebellion in the Loire Valley.
Precisely. The Earl of Warwick isn't the kingmaker in England. He's probably the military governor of Aquitaine. All that violent energy that burned England down is channeled outwards into the empire. The Baron's Peace, they call it.
And this leads to a genealogical dead end for one very famous family.
The Tudors.
So.
No Henry VIII.
No Henry VIII, no Elizabeth I. You have to remember, the Tudors were, they were minor Welsh gentry, nobody.
Right.
They only rose because the great Plantagenet lines, Lancaster and York, spent 30 years slaughtering each other. They created a vacuum, and the Tudors just stepped into it.
But without the Wars of the Roses.
The Plantagenet line continues, strong and secure. No Henry VII, and crucially, no Henry VIII.
That just stops me in my tracks. No Henry VIII means
no English Reformation. Because the break with Rome, it wasn't really a popular theological movement, was it? Not at first.
Not at all. It was a top-down political move by a king who desperately needed a divorce.
So if you have a secure Lancastrian king on the throne,
he has no need for annulment. The title, Defender of the Faith, which the Pope gave the English monarchy, it stays literal. This Anglo-French realm becomes a pillar of Catholic orthodoxy.
So Britain never becomes that Protestant island nation defined by its isolation.
No, it becomes a continental absolutist power deeply entangled with Rome and the Counter-Reformation. Its whole identity is different.
That must be terrible news for Scotland.
Devastating. Absolutely devastating for Scotland. The old alliance between Scotland and France was its lifeline.
Whenever England attacked, France would help.
Exactly, a pincer movement. But now France is England.
The pincer is gone.
Scotland is completely alone on that island. James I comes back from captivity as, well, essentially a client king.
Yeah.
And then you add the religion.
Right, because Scotland historically becomes fiercely Protestant.
Presbyterian, yes. And in this timeline, if Protestantism rises in Scotland, the Catholic superpower to its south sees that as treason. It's not just heresy, it's rebellion.
So you get brutal suppression.
A much darker, occupied future for the north.
Okay, let's widen the lens out even further. We have this massive Anglo-French bloc dominating Western Europe. What does that do to global geopolitics?
Well, first you have to look at Burgundy, Henry's ally, Philip the Good. In our world, that alliance crumbled.
But not with a living Henry V.
A living Henry V forces Philip to kneel to accept his place in the new hierarchy. So now you have England, France, and the Low Countries all acting as one unit.
That's an economic and military juggernaut.
It is, but it changes where they look. The empire's eyes are fixed on the continent, on the Holy Roman Empire, on Italy. They have a continental gaze.
They aren't looking out at the Atlantic.
No. Which brings us to a certain Genoese sailor.
Christopher Columbus?
Poor Columbus. In our timeline, he went begging at every court in Europe. He even sent his brother to the English court of Henry VII.
And in this timeline?
He's dismissed even faster. I mean, why would this Anglo-French emperor care about some risky voyage to the Indies? He's the master of Europe. He has land. He has wealth. He doesn't have the desperation that drove Spain and Portugal to the sea.
So Columbus goes to Spain just like he did in our history.
He does. But the consequences are huge. Spain and Portugal get to monopolize the Americas. The Treaty of Tordesillas, which divided the New World between them, it goes completely unchallenged by the English.
So no Sir Francis Drake, no privateers raiding the Spanish Main.
Exactly. The Atlantic becomes a Spanish lake. But think about something even more profound. Think about the 13 colonies. Plymouth Rock.
The Pilgrims, they were fleeing religious persecution.
Right. But in this timeline, who are they fleeing from? England is Catholic. There are no Puritans. There is no Anglican church to persecute dissenters.
The entire reason for their journey.
It's gone. The demographic engine that created the United States, that burning desire for religious freedom, it just never gets started.
Wow, the seed of the United States just never gets planted.
Or if it does, it's completely different. If the Anglo-French do get to America, it's late. It's state-run. It's military. They're there to seize Spanish gold, not build free towns.
Which brings us to our final part, the constitutional cost, the price of all this victory.
This is the real paradox, I think. We have to ask, how did English liberty, how did Parliament become so powerful?
Well, the story we learn is that it was a long, slow evolution.
It was, but it was driven by one thing above all. The king needed money. The crown was often weak and, crucially, poor.
And to get money for wars, especially the losing wars in France.
He had to go to Parliament. And Parliament would say, all right, but first we want some rights. Redress of grievances before supply. That's the engine of English liberty. It grew from the king's weakness.
But a victorious Henry V ruling France, he isn't weak. And he certainly isn't poor.
He's incredibly rich. He has the taxes of Normandy, the wine duties of Gascony. The whole center of government shifts to Paris. He becomes financially independent of the English Parliament.
So Parliament just withers away.
It becomes a rubber stamp. A provincial assembly that maybe discusses the price of wool, but it has no say on the big questions of war and state.
And if Parliament is weak and the king is strong,
then the English Civil War never happens. No Oliver Cromwell. No execution of Charles I. The Glorious Revolution never happens.
And the ideas that came out of all that turmoil, John Locke, government by consent.
Those ideas are never born. Or if they are, they're just crushed as dangerous, radical nonsense. The world Henry creates is one of order, stability, and power. But it is an autocracy.
It's an incredible thought. We always see victory as good and defeat as bad. But here,
you could argue that the beautiful accident of British liberty, of parliamentary democracy, was born directly from the failure of the French conquest.
Because losing France forced England to look inward.
Exactly. And because the king was weak, the people, through Parliament, gained power. Henry V's triumph would have created a golden age, for sure, of art, faith, imperial might.
But at what cost?
At the cost of the very idea of Britain as we know it, as a cradle of individual freedom.
It's a chilling trade-off. We avoid the chaos of the Wars of the Roses, but we lose the Bill of Rights.
That is the trade. A perfect, stable empire doesn't leave much room for the messy business of freedom.
So as we wrap up, I think that's the thought to leave you with. We often root for the hero, for the perfect victory, but maybe, just maybe, it's in the failures and the messy retreats that something new and important gets a chance to grow.
Well said. History isn't just about the great men, is it? It's about the cracks in the system where life happens.
Henry V's life was short in our world, but his shadow was long. In this world, his life is long, but the shadow covers everything. Thank you for joining us.
A real pleasure.
And to all of you listening, keep asking what if, because history might have turned otherwise.